Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the 2025 Meet the Candidate Series. My name is Jimmy Tingle. We'll be talking to candidates running for Cambridge City Council and Cambridge School Committee for 2025. Our first guest this year is candidate for Cambridge City Council, Tim Flaherty. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. It's nice to see you. I appreciate the invitation.
You're welcome, sir. Timmy and I kind of go back a long way here in the city of Cambridge, but for the people who don't know Tim, for the purpose of this is to give people a platform who are running for office to let the rest of the city and voters know who they are, why they're running, what they hope to accomplish, things like that. They're general conversations. So, Timmy, tell us who you are and why you're running.
Well, I'm Tim Flaherty. I'm running for Cambridge City Council, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you out there. I grew up in North Cambridge. Lived here my whole life. I grew up in a two-family house on Woodbridge Street, and I loved that time when I grew up there. And Jimmy, maybe you had the same experience. I felt as though I knew every single neighborhood, every single family in that neighborhood for a 20-block radius. I love that sense of community. I have great relationships in that time in my life. I have tremendous memories. I remember, playing ball on Como Field and Ringe Park, and maybe some of those memories are actually true. I live in West Cambridge now. My wife, Lisa, and my son, Timothy, and I love it. I love living in West Cambridge. I love coaching my son in the Tigers and West Cambridge Little Baseball League, and boys from across the city and St. Peter's CYO, going to Formaggio Kitchen, walking the dog around the pond. So I guess the question is, why am I running for city council? I think I can help. I think the city's a great city, but there's more that we can do, Jimmy.
Right. And now this is not the first time you ran for public office, right?
No, when I was a kid, I ran for Middlesex DA, and it was fantastic. It was a great learning experience. I was an assistant DA in Norfolk County. I've been an assistant DA for about 10 years, and I was told by some senior members in the office that this was a great opportunity for me, and I did it. And I learned a lot about the blocking and tackling of politics.
Yeah.
Then many years later, I ran for state senate, and I was successfully defeated in both of those efforts. And I'm okay with it, Jim. I'm okay with that because, I'm not afraid of failure. And I learned from those experiences like most of us do. Most of us learn the most important lessons from those sort of difficult experiences.
Right.
And so I feel as though I'm prepared.
Right. And you have some politics in your blood, right? Coming from North Cambridge?
Yeah, I do. My father was a state rep, and, so living in the house that I lived in, it was very important when the telephone rang, you had to grab a pencil and take a message and make sure you got a return number so my father can make that call back. If you didn't, you might get the back of the phone book against your head, because it was important. My father wanted to do his very best to be in touch with the people that he represented and make sure that whatever concerns they have were addressed. He was a big constituent service person. And, Jimmy, I think that had an impact on me. And as you may know, I went to BC High and BC Law, and I learned from the Jesuits, and I was taught that it's very important. One of the fundamental principles of my life is to be a man for others, and to do what you can for those in need. And sometimes people probably raise an eyebrow when I tell them this, but my political hero in life was Pope Francis, our recent Pope. And that's what he did. He lived with mercy and love and looked after the marginalized and the impoverished. And I think that's what we should be doing in government and in public service. And I think to a certain extent, that's exactly what my father's sort of values and mission in life was. And it's just second nature to me. So it's very important to me, and that's how I try and live my life, Jimmy.
Right. That's kind of the Tip O'Neill philosophy as well, coming from North Cambridge. Constituent services is huge.
Well, it is huge. And I can remember Tip O'Neill being a kid in North Cambridge and seeing him around. And I can remember him going to Vic's Egg on One on Mass Ave and buying breakfast for people in there. And he was a larger-than-life figure. and he touched so many lives in a very positive way. He had a great impact on the McGrail household, for instance. And he was just and Jimmy, what's important, I think, for people to know, and maybe some people don't remember Tip O'Neill or know too much about his history in Cambridge. He was a fellow that went to, St. John's and grew up in North Cambridge. He got his name Tip because he could foul off a pitch. That's why they called him Tip. And he became a national leader. And one of the things that Tip O'Neill did, which I think is so important for today's society and today's politics, is he was able to move past the polarization, which is one of the reasons why I'm running for Cambridge City Council, move beyond the disagreements that we have about politics and policies and agree to disagree. And, there's a famous story of him playing cards and having a drink with Ronald Reagan, the president, after they fought tooth and nail over domestic policies. And I think that speaks so much to the measure of the man that he was. And I think that's sadly needed today in our American democracy. I really do.
Right. So in terms of the Cambridge City Council, you feel that you'd be able to work with others on the council. Give me an example of some of the things you'd like to accomplish if you were elected.
Well, Jimmy, in as a segue, I think, for people from outside Cambridge look at Cambridge and they say, all they do is they argue about bike lanes and affordable housing. And those are important issues, and we do. But there's so much more happening in the city. And I think we need to move past the polarization on those subjects and move to things that are happening in real people's lives every single day in this city. Like, for instance, marginalized youth. I've done a lot of work as a criminal defense attorney, as a coach, and I know a lot of kids that have grown up in Jefferson Park, Waldorf Square, Newtown Court, Washington Elms, and they face obstacles in their life, Jimmy, that my son has never faced. And I think it's important as a city that we pay attention to those people, not write them off, but pay attention to them. There's a program that's based in Chelsea called ROCA, and what they do is they meet these kids whose lives have been traumatized maybe by urban violence, meet them where they are, use cognitive behavioral therapy, reprioritize their lives, and get them on a pathway to success. I think often that as members of the Cambridge City Council, if there's a kid who grows up in Newtown Court and he can't walk 3 blocks of Kendall Square and get an outstanding internship at one of these global firms in biotech or life sciences or whatever it is, and that leads to a high-paying career. If we're not doing that in this city, then we're failing. We're failing our population, and we need to do more of that. And that's what I'd like to do in the Cambridge City Council. I'd like to develop a program citywide that helps prioritize things in those kids' lives and moves them to a productive life and towards success. I think it's important.
Yeah. In terms of working with others on this Cambridge City Council, I know there's a lot of issues there. Can you give a couple of examples of things where you could, based on what you just said, maybe find common ground on certain issues that are somewhat polarizing now?
Yeah, Jimmy, I think my professional experience has prepared me well for the Cambridge City Council. I've been a lawyer I was a prosecutor for 10 years and in criminal defense now for 20 or 25 years, and I work in a polarized system. The criminal justice is very polarized, and I've navigated that with some success. In fact, I've got a track record of achieving just results many times when the odds are against me and my client. And I think I'd like to take that skill set to the city council. It's important to make compelling arguments based on data and science and rational facts, but also to be able to agree to disagree. Like, for instance, it's a very complicated issue about affordable housing in Massachusetts. And this is a regional issue. It's not specific to Cambridge. And I think what we've done is we've created a zoning ordinance in Cambridge that needs a fresh look. There's lots of unintended impacts associated with that zoning ordinance. I don't think it's a good idea to incentivize the demolition of 2- and 3-family homes just for the construction of 4-story buildings. but we do need affordable housing. That four-story building has no element of affordable housing associated with it. I think Governor Healy's got a great idea. She's talking about transit housing. She's talking about developing ADUs. She's talking about converting unused or vacant office space to residential apartment buildings by the use of low interest loans, some grants, historical tax credits. These are all the things that we should be doing in Cambridge. But in order to do that, Jimmy, we've got to start from a position of respect, understanding, and have thoughtful conversations with one another. And I think if we're able to do that in a sensible, civil, cordial way, then we can move the needle towards the common good and help everyone.
Right. Tell me, what else can you tell us about that you'd like to work on at the council? Because your background, you've had a lot of experience in politics, and as you said that you believe in working with others. Do you have feelings? Well, I know one of the contentious issues is the bike lanes. Do you have feelings
Yep.
one way or the other about that? Is it good the way it is? Could it be improved? Which any thoughts on that?
I think the bike lanes are a very contentious issue in Cambridge, and we should move past the argument about whether or not bike lanes should be in Cambridge. Of course, they should be in Cambridge. But the question is, are they safe, Jimmy? Are they safe for everyone? Are they safe for pedestrians, for elderly people? Are they safe in intersections on every street that they're located on? And, frankly, as a former prosecutor, I've got an awful lot of information and experience working with accident reconstruction reports. I haven't seen any of them associated with the tragic incidents that have happened in Cambridge, but I do know that they've happened. And they've happened bicycling and with bike lanes. So rather than just continue to build bike lanes, I think what we should do is do a top to bottom safety review and see what we're doing that it works and what doesn't work. Because if any of these tragedies can be avoided, then we have to do that. We've got to do that. I think there's differences between different intersections and streets, and whether the education has been widespread enough throughout the city. I think the implementation of the bike lanes were problematic in Cambridge, and that's led to some consternation among citizens. There's a lot of consternation among citizens, but I think we can do a better job. It's not a question of whether or not there should be bike lanes in Cambridge. The question is whether or not the bike lanes are safe for everyone, for bicyclists, for pedestrians, for motorists, for people on using public transit, for handicapped people, elderly people. There's a lot of issues. It's complicated, but it's not something we can't work with together as a city council and improve the process.
Great. And so, Timmy, anything else you want to tell the folks about you, and where can they find out more about Tim Flaherty? Where could they volunteer if they wanted to, read more about you on your website, maybe donate if they're so inclined?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a website, flahertyforcambridge.com. You can learn more about my priorities and about me personally on that page. There's some photographs that you can look at. What I'd also like everyone to do, if you go to flahertyforcambridge.com and read the Tiger Tales, Jimmy, because as a coach of the West Cambridge Miners Tigers team, I used to write a roundup after each game. I got some advice from a friend of mine who coached in Brookline. He said, look, pretend as if you're a sports columnist and put every kid's name in the story afterwards. I lost my mind. I thought I was Grantland Rice writing about the four horsemen of Notre Dame. And if you want some entertainment, read the Tiger Tales, because these kids were epic. The games were fantastic, and the families and the grandparents that came and watched it were outstanding. And Jimmy, in a nutshell, I'd like to say this. When you put little league kids in a dugout, they form a community, and they call each other by their nicknames. We had 3 Jacks on the team: Applejack, we had Detroit Jack, and we had Irish Jack. And they know each other by those nicknames.
Yeah.
And that's how you form a community. And as we get older, maybe we develop prejudices and we don't treat one another with the fairness, the honesty, the respect that these kids do. And they'll be lifelong friends. Nobody's going to remember who hit a home run. Nobody's going to remember who struck out, but they'll be friends. And we need more of that in the city of Cambridge. And if we can do that, we'll be a great city. Not that we aren't already, but we'll be even better. Greatest city on the planet.
Great. Thank you, Timmy. And maybe if you do get elected, we can, convert the Cambridge City Council chamber to a dugout. We can give nicknames to all the other council people, and we can work together to move the city forward.
Now you're talking, Jimmy.
Thank you so much.
so much.
For joining us. Thank
Hey,
you, Tim Flaherty, candidate for Cambridge City Council. Thank you, Timmy. You can see his website right there on the screen. You can learn more about him there. Thank you so much, and good luck on November 4th, right?
November 4th, early voting, October 25th. Please go out and vote. If you want to hold a sign, we've got an office in North Cambridge, 2449 Mass Ave. Come make a call, knock a door, hold a sign. We can change the world together. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you, Tim.